Welcome to Bracket U, a college basketball bracket podcast brought to you by Delphi Bracketology. This is our third episode of the season, and we're beginning our 8th year of bracketology work and want to bring weekly updates to those of you who want to know where their favorite team stands in regards to the NCAA tournament. This podcast is for all you junkies out there who have March Madness all season long. We're able to create a lot of this new content thanks to sponsorships like that of Coca-Cola Bottling of Kokomo and other generous donations of our followers. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for creating our intro music and to Jared Morris of the Assembly Call for inspiring us to branch out and all of the technical stuff that we use to bring you this show. So tonight we're a two-man panel. Cade has joined us before. Luke Smock, our other panelist, is on a date tonight. It's an anniversary, and we wish Luke and Kaylin, congratulations on this special night, and we'll catch up with you next week. So Cade is a junior. He's an editor of our Bracketology Club, and there's 3 weeks of college basketball. Cade, what's on your mind after 3 weeks?
Well, to start off, my team, Ohio State, got a big win against the number 1 ranked Duke team. So I'll get deeper into that later though. But for right now, we had our meeting this morning, and mainly it's just the of having the lack of info and data on teams and just having to move them around and struggling with the close teams and where we should put them in our brackets and things like that.
Yeah, Cade brings up a good point. We operate as the NCAA committee operates off of the net, and the net is a sorting tool which allows a data to be published that'll tell us which teams have quad 1 and quad 2 wins, which are good wins, and then quad 3 and 4 losses are bad losses. We don't have that yet. So we're practicing in our meetings every Thursday morning of just looking at teams and who has had good wins and maybe some bad losses. And it gets difficult. You're absolutely right, Kate. It's difficult when a lot of teams have one loss, one big win, one tough loss, or just one loss overall. So our bracket reveal today and our talk today is just what would be if the tournament happened today, and it's not really, we're not into predictions like who's going to be all right once the tournament or conference play. So yeah, Kate, it was quite interesting this morning trying to go through every team's schedule and find out information. Our new bracket will come out tomorrow. We're ready to do that, but we're going to start out here with some games of last week, games that grabbed our attention as far as bracket purposes. Cade, go ahead and start us out with your game of last week.
So my game of last week was Ohio State versus Duke, like I mentioned earlier. And that was my game, not only because I like Ohio State, but because a number 1 ranked team like Duke, most people would expect them to be in unranked Ohio State. But the fact that Ohio State was down 13 at half and it wasn't really looking too good for them, that pushed people's thoughts even more to, okay, Duke's going to win this game, maybe go on a little second half run and then blow Ohio State out. But a double-double from E.J. Lytle with 14 rebounds and 14 points helped the Buckeyes to get it back rolling in the second half. And then Zed Key had a good game. He had 20 points, and I think that game is just one that might stick with Duke for the rest of the year. And that might change our view on them later too.
Yep.
So.
And especially Ohio State. I mean, that win's not going away for Ohio State. When you beat the number 1 team and Duke's going to be a quad 1, that's a kind of win that'll move Ohio State up our brackets. For me, it was Duke Gonzaga. Duke beating Gonzaga, and the thought of Gonzaga, are they going to have another undefeated regular season? And Duke really, despite the loss to Ohio State, kind of solidified itself as a top seed, maybe a 2 seed right now. They're going to have to really lose some games in order to drop off of maybe our top 2 lines there. But I thought it was a good week for Duke. They had a little hangover, and they really had that game against Ohio State, and Ohio State went on a nice run. But that your game against Ohio State's really big for the Big Ten too, because if anyone now beats Ohio State, they're going to the metrics are going to be nice for Ohio State. So there's a couple games that affected the brackets, especially the top of the brackets for us. If we, when we produce this out tomorrow, and we'll reveal our top 4 seeds for tomorrow later in the show. So we're 3 weeks in, and teams are moving up and teams are moving down, and the sample size is so small. But again, this is practice, and this is for all the junkies that are tuning in and listening, that you just like to talk basketball and brackets. So this is more like a picture of if today, not again prediction. So Cade, who's your team on the rise?
My team on the rise. This is kind of help Luke out since he isn't here to talk about Purdue. I got Purdue as my team on the rise because they're undefeated and they beat two good teams in Tennessee and Villanova in that Hall of Fame tip-off tournament. And to win a tournament-style event like that will really help them later on in the year. And then for them to be undefeated and the rest of their wins to be blowouts too, 20-point at least double-digit wins is just a great like momentum builder for them early on in the season to pick up all those wins, especially against some of those bigger teams in those tournaments. That just solidifies them as what might be said the best team in the Big Ten. And then obviously they might be ranked number 1 now and then the best team in the nation. So,
and as of tomorrow, they'll be our top seed in the NCAA tournament from our bracket. Yes, Purdue is definitely on the rise within the top seeds. For me, it's Iowa State, a team that was supposed to be really bad in the Big 12 and has had some nice wins. They beat Memphis and Virginia Tech in a tournament. They got 2 really nice wins. And at this point of the season, 2 quality wins is tough to look over from bracket purposes. So Coach Olselberger has them going, headed in the right direction. Now, it'll see if that was just a 1 week, of play. Memphis has some issues right now. They are out of our bracket after their 2 losses. So Iowa State is in and has moved up, but again, it's a whole body of work throughout the whole season. We'll see if they can stay. So on the other side of this is teams on the decline. Cade, what team do you want to talk about that's on the decline early in the season?
For me, I have another Big Ten team in Michigan. And the fact that they're on the decline is because they were ranked 4th early on. And there was a lot of predictions coming out about they were going to be a good team and have a good early season push, like almost like Purdue's having right now. But then to come out and lose 3 games to Seton Hall, Arizona, and North Carolina, it's just for them, especially with those, we don't like to really go off like comparisons or like predictions or anything like that. But those games that they lost, and it just really hurts them as a team almost because, it kind of deflates them when you're expected to be that good. And then it almost looks like the other teams in the Big Ten, like they might not be able to compete with them either. But like I said, those are just predictions, and they have the whole rest of the season to turn it around. But with those 3 early losses, they're definitely on the decline.
Yes, and we're going to have them out of the tournament. We do think if we were in the prediction business that they'll get back into the tournament. But the 3 losses aren't bad. Those are good teams. Probably the worst of them right now is Seton Hall. But Seton Hall, Arizona, North Carolina are all in our bracket. So it's not like they've taken a bad loss. But 3 losses right now does not compare to a lot of the teams. And again, in the small sample size, what we got to look at, Michigan is out. For me, it's Memphis. Memphis loses 2 in a row and has not played extremely well. Was highly thought of early. They're struggling with their point guard play. Lost 2 straight games, including to Georgia, who is supposed to be the bottom of the SEC. And again, in this early season comparison, Memphis finds its way out. It was one of our tough decisions of Thursday morning. These are teams, Memphis and Michigan, we believe are good, but right now the resume is not. And so that's the team on the decline. So, okay, here's our top 4 seed lines for tomorrow's bracket. You can find that bracket at DelphiBracketology.com. We're going to try to put out a new bracket every Friday, and we'll have these podcasts to talk about it every Thursday that we're in school session. So coming up at Christmas time, we'll have a couple Thursdays off possibly. But again, the body of work is so small. It's way too early to really be doing this with any kind of seriousness. But we like it. So, and obviously those of you who are listening live or listening on the podcast later, you like hearing it too. We're really excited about getting the net ranking out. As Cade mentioned earlier, it's a lot easier with data that is on a spreadsheet and easy to look at, and more information than what we have right now. But here we go. Our number one seeds, and these are in order. Purdue is our overall number one seed in tomorrow's bracket, followed by Duke number 2, Gonzaga number 3. And our top discussion today was what to do with that fourth number one seed. And our group elected to go with Baylor, who is undefeated as the fourth number one seed. Number 2 seeds are UCLA, Arkansas, Villanova, and Kansas. In that order, our 3 seeds are Texas, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio State. 4 seeds are Southern Cal, Arizona, Florida, and Michigan State finds its way into the top 16. For me, there's a lot of questions there. Those teams have all had undefeated records or one nice wins. There's some teams that are in our 5 and 6 range that I think you can easily find a way to put them in our top 4, but that's who we settled on at this point of the season. Cade, as you look at our top 16 seeds, what team sticks out to you? Do you want to talk about either positively or, they're in there, but there's some questions? What sticks out to you in our top 16 seeds?
I think it's hard to really judge any teams right now with like the one. I know it might look bad with maybe having 2 losses but still being ranked up here in our top 4 seeds. But a team like Arkansas, who is undefeated, but they haven't really played anyone. So it's hard to judge them to a team like Purdue or Duke, where Purdue's undefeated and they've played good teams like Villanova and Tennessee. But then Duke has played some good teams in Gonzaga and lost to them. But then they have that game against Ohio State. But things like that just really interest me because it's cool to see what we'll do with Arkansas and the games they've played, and then other teams like Purdue, and just moving them around and really having good conversations about what to do with those teams.
For me, the 4 seed line is just a big question, and even Ohio State at the 3 seed, but when you beat a Duke early in the season, usually we don't move a team up or down too much based on one result. But early in the season, one result does change the comparison. And when you compare the wins, Ohio State's got a huge win. And they've lost to 2, they've had 2 losses, but not bad losses. Michigan State has just 1 loss, and they have some nice wins. USC and Arizona, they gotta start playing some people and beating some people, or you'll see some teams start moving up from the 5 and 6 seed range for them. Those are the teams, you feel pretty comfortable with seeds 1 and 2 from a bracket perspective right now. The 3 and 4 line have some questions, but so does the rest of our bracket when you see that tomorrow. So in today's meeting, Cade, we focused on those top 4 seed lines, and then we focused on the last 10 teams in. Those are the 10 seeds and the 11 seeds, and then the teams that were on the bubble. And our major discussion points were with Memphis, Michigan, and Florida State, and we dropped Memphis and Michigan out, as we talked about earlier in our teams on the decline. Talk a little bit about how that discussion went. We went back and forth with if you're going to take teams out of the bracket, you got to put teams in. Share our tough decisions that we had today with a group of about 12 people.
So we had, like you said, we were talking about Michigan and Memphis, and those teams, and especially the teams below them that we have to replace them with. It's just hard for us because, there's not a lot of data, and the little data that we have, it's hard for a team like Mississippi State, who only has 1 loss, to rank them against teams like Michigan or Memphis that have played some tougher teams and lost a couple more games. And then the biggest thing was just moving those teams up, because like the teams that were out to up for Michigan and Memphis is just hard because like I said, there's not a lot of data. And so we moved Washington and Creighton up, I believe, for Michigan and Memphis.
We used San Francisco.
Washington State. Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. We discussed Washington State. Yes, we did.
Yeah. But it was just teams like that they don't have very many losses, but then they haven't really played anyone that for to compare against teams like Michigan and Memphis.
Yeah, Kate, I think that's the toughest thing, is some of the teams that were out that we considered to move in when we weren't happy with Memphis and Michigan, that it looks good, but do they have the quality wins? And that's something that'll, in a month from now, will start clearing up, and really in late January will start clearing up as teams get more wins and the records start being more true to who these teams are. And again, our philosophy is, if the tournament was held today, what would we, suggest? And with 3 losses for Michigan, they don't have a good win, and they have 3 losses, even though they were against good teams. You bring up a great point that it's just hard. So we moved San Francisco in because they're undefeated, but they haven't really played anybody. And that's just hard for us to really grasp. But this early we did. We do think the West Coast Conference is going to be very competitive. St. Mary's, Gonzaga, BYU, that's going to be a conference. They're going to get more teams in this year than we think. I don't know if they'll get 4, but we just kind of threw San Francisco in there because they were undefeated, as opposed to teams that have losses right now. I think that'll clear up. The toughest decision, Cade, was with who the last team in, and we settled on Louisville. And as you said, it was Louisville, Washington State, Mississippi State were some of the teams that we were talking about. And then late, St. John's, Drake was suggested by some of our members. We had about 8 or 9 suggestions from people, and they were all different. And that's the interesting thing I find about doing this bracket business, is you could make an argument right now on a small sample size about any of these teams. So we put Louisville in, despite their loss to Michigan State. They were able to win a tournament, overcome the loss of their coach for 6 games. They had a tough loss early, but he was suspended. Their coach, Chris Mack, was suspended. So we kind of discussed that and thought, okay, Louisville has defeated Maryland. Let's have San Francisco and Louisville play in the last play-in game. Obviously, I think Louisville has some work to do in order to stay in. Any of those other teams you want to talk about, those bubble teams that were out? You mentioned Creighton's another team that's won some games, but the quality of their wins is not really good. Any other discussion points about the bubble?
I think, like we were saying, like Creighton and then Washington State is on here. That is another team that I think only has 1 loss. That obviously hurts them, but then their wins to move them up, they haven't really played anyone, so we can't move them up or down, and we just kind of got to wait on them to see, and wait on a team like Michigan too to see if they lose more games and Washington State wins more, so then we can start moving them around. And yeah, but it's just hard right now because, like I said earlier, we don't have the data to really get in depth and figure out for sure who's up and who's down.
So we always look at games, and there's some big games coming up, and I got a few on here. I must have deleted them, but I'm going to try to remember them out loud here since we are live, some of the dangers of going live. The first big one is conference play starts in a lot of conferences around the country, and that's always going to be good. We do not look at conference records, so your conference standing does not. Each team is an independent contractor kind of, but you do start conference play, and you want to win conference games because those are going to be your quad 1 and quad 2 if you're in a good conference. The number 1 game is Iowa at Purdue. Iowa's undefeated. They beat Virginia, was their best win. That's why they moved up our bracket that you'll see tomorrow. We'll talk about that game, Iowa-Purdue. You got undefeated Iowa versus undefeated Purdue. First game in the Big Ten. What do you think is going to happen there, Cade?
Well, I guess I'll just go with, what Luke would say here and say that I think Purdue, just playing how well they've been playing, they'll win. They'll beat Iowa. And I think this game and other interconference games are pivotal for these teams because in the non-conference games, like early on, the Purdue plays like some, I don't want to say smaller schools, but like some schools that maybe not many people have heard of. But then these conference games really show like who has been working and who will truly be a good team when they play these interconference games and when they play their conference teams multiple times throughout the year. So it'll just show who the good teams are. And then it'll really expose the bad teams, and then that'll give us a discussion for who we should move up and then who we should move down.
On Saturday, and these games matter. Games in November matter just as much as March, and you'll hear us on the podcast and everyone in the tournament week. Oh, if someone goes on a run, they got to move up 3 or 4 seeds. No, you got to have a body of work. So November and December games really matter, and they do influence you. Marquette at Wisconsin is a huge game. Both teams were kind of ranked at the bottom half of their conference, predicted, and both have had nice runs to start, and a winner there is going to get a boost. San Diego State at Michigan. Michigan needs a win. San Diego State has had a few losses in their conference. They've typically been a team that has made the bracket. Tennessee, Colorado. We have Colorado in the bracket. They need to beat some people, and this is a great opportunity. They have Tennessee at home for Colorado to be one of those Pac-12 teams that stays in the bracket. I do apologize. I had it on the run sheet and we deleted. I'm looking through my phone here to see what other games. Loyola DePaul, really important for Loyola because Loyola is really good. They lost, I think went 1-2 in the Bahamas or the Battle for Atlantis, but they're a team that could get an at-large. They're so good. They could get an at-large if they run the table and lose in their conference tournament. A game against a Big East opponent is huge. You want to get those wins if you are Loyola. St. Mary's, Colorado State. Colorado State has moved into our bracket. They're undefeated, playing really well. St. Mary's is in Gonzaga's conference. They need to pick up wins. Syracuse, Florida State, a couple bubble teams in the ACC playing on Saturday night as well. We'll move on here. The best game of the week is Alabama-Gonzaga. I'm glad I found that. I had that big circle. Alabama lost to Iona, took a tough loss there. Boy, a chance. Anytime you play at Gonzaga, you get that win, it's going to stay. Your thoughts on Alabama-Gonzaga, Kate?
On the Gonzaga-Alabama game, my thoughts on that? Is that what you said?
Yep.
I think that's a big game because for a team like Alabama who has a couple losses and really just if they can get that win, that's a big win for them that, like you said, it sticks. But then for Gonzaga too, if they get that loss, then that's a loss for them that isn't necessarily a bad loss, but it's a loss that we definitely look at going into late January, early March. So it'll really make an impact come those months. And then especially for Alabama, if they can get this win, it'll be to show them, their team personally, that they can get some good wins and then just have some more confidence going into the middle of the season here.
Yeah, and anytime you can pull off a major, that's what was so good about Ohio State's win. Anytime you can pull off a win against a major leader like that, it's good. Iowa State and Creighton play on Saturday, and Iowa State, as we said, has moved into our bracket because of recent wins. Creighton is out, but we're watching them, so that's a game that our committee will also take a look at. San Francisco, who we did move in, is playing UNLV on Saturday, so those are some big games. Checking out Sunday, Mississippi State plays a Big Ten opponent in Minnesota. That'll have an impact over the weekend. And again, conference play with the Pac-12 and the ACC gets started with teams playing in their conference. And then obviously Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there's a lot of games. But if you're looking for stuff this weekend, there are some good games as well as the NFL and the college football tournament stuff that's going on. So we're in the bracket business. We've been working here. We're teaching a lot of newcomers in our group how to big wins and bad losses. And, when you look at our bracket tomorrow, there will be things that you disagree with. Hit us up on Twitter. Comment on our show here. This is a work in progress, but it's way too early to get too worked up about where anyone is. It's just a snapshot. So it's time for our game-winning comments here as we end the show, Cade, as we are 3 weeks in and had a couple meetings with our club. What's your game-winning comment here to end the show?
My game winner is just to fill in. I'm going to say this again, to fill in the space for Luke, because Purdue is such a good team, to just see them continue to win and this might be their first time ever being ranked number 1 in the nation. So just to see them win and continue to have success, especially so close to home, I think that'd just be really cool. And then as the conference games get into play, like I mentioned earlier, seeing these teams like Purdue playing these conference opponents that if they lose a game or two, then just to see where that puts them and then give us some better conversations and really make it harder on us, because I know that, like, obviously we don't want it to be hard, but I think that's the fun of it in bracketology, to have those discussions and teach the youngins and, get to see the teams move throughout the year and how that all plays out. So that's what I want to see going into the
and
rest of the season.
we get to tell Steve Painter, our math teacher, that you can't put every mid major in the tournament. Like he would put 10 mid majors in for his suggestion. My game winners, it's just good to have games back with fans. Already a couple upsets of the number 1 team, some court storms. Good to see. Again, thank you to all of our listeners. We have a little bit more live listeners today. Feel free that if you have a question to put it in the chat. We'll try to answer that here on these Thursdays. Listen to us on iTunes and Spotify. We want to thank our sponsors as well. Game Winning. We've had people this week commenting from North Texas, sending us inquiries about donating for our club. For our all internet expenses and technology expenses and so forth. We can't thank the support that we get around the country. And so that's my game winner tonight is we do this for a lot of reasons, but we also do it for those of you who are tuning in to our show. So that'll do it for our third episode here of Bracket U for the 2021-22 season. We'll be back again next week. Until then, make sure you check out our website, DelphiBracketology.com. We're trying to put out a lot more information, working with some high school kids. We are trying to pump out a lot of stuff, conference reports, upsets of the week, bracket news, bubble news, brackets every Friday. These podcasts, these young people are doing a tremendous job, and we hope to bring you as much information. We do it in short bursts, so you can do a 30-second, 40-second read on the Big Ten Conference, which one of our teachers has put out today or will put out tomorrow. So check us out at DelphiBracketology.com. Follow us at Twitter and ask us questions. And our handle there is at Delphi Brackets, Instagram at Delphi Bracketology. We have lots of updates and information. It'll get really rolling once the new year comes and college basketball is the main sport. We do have a donation page if you're interested in helping us out with all costs associated with our club, if you choose to do that. And we always hope that your team wins the big games, especially those games on the road. And we'll talk about them here on Bracket U.